Hey everyone, it's Calvin here. In today's two-part video, I'm going to show you how to paint this cute Christmas tree illustration. And after that, I'll show you how to print it out as a 5x7 folding card at home. As always, you can find a list of all the brushes and textures that I'm using for this down in the description. Now, I'm going to start by painting the tree first. So for that, I'm going to use the blotchy wash brush and a pretty dark bluish green tone. And I'm going to build the tree basically by stacking a bunch of strokes like this. And now that we've got the kind of silhouette of the tree, or the shape of it, kind of roughed out, I'm going to do the shadows and highlights. So first I'll do the highlights. So I'm going to choose a very light green color. Same brush, just a little bit of a smaller size. And I'm going to try to focus this and scribble it on the areas that would get more light. And after that, I'm going to use a darker color to do the same thing, but I'm going to focus this on the shadow areas this time. And after that, I'm going to use the arrow tool set to warp. And I'm going to bend this tree and make it look a little bit better and a little bit more symmetrical. There we go. I guess the main thing is that it has a kind of conical shape and it sort of flares out at the bottom. I think the warp tool makes that easier to get. And later on, when I decorate this tree, I'm going to add a star to the top. But for now, I want to use the eraser brush to kind of sharpen it, just to make it easier to add the details later. Next, I'm going to move on and paint the basket underneath the tree. And for that, I'm going to make a blank layer and use a kind of light khaki color and the abstract round brush to very, very roughly make this basket. And after that, I'm going to use the eraser brush again, which is still set to the fineliner pen. And I'm going to clean up our blob here and sort of shape it into our basket. Next, I want to shade the opening of the basket so it gets darker kind of as we go inside. And for that, I'm going to choose a slightly darker version of our basket color. Same abstract round, just a little bit of a smaller size. And I'm going to rough this out using a couple different shades of this basket color. I'm just trying to make sure it gets darker, closer to the inside of the opening. And after that, I'm going to change my brush to the fineliner pen and use a very light version of our basket color to add all the small details on it. Now, it's totally optional, but I want the bottom half of my basket to have this sort of whitewash effect. So to do that, I'm going to use the selection tool, set to freehand. And I'm just going to select the bottom half, but I'm going to try to make it a very rough, kind of wiggly selection over in this area. Then I'll reconnect it. Then I'm going to go to my adjustments, curves, and I'm just going to raise up this bottom blue node here, just until we've got a nice light version. And it's not perfect, but I think it does have that whitewash effect. And once the basket's done, we can make the trunk that's going to connect the tree to the basket. But first, I want to make sure I move the basket so it lines up a little bit better under that tree. There we go. And I'm going to put the trunk on the same layer as the basket, so no need to make an extra layer. And I'm just going to do that with a few shades of brown and the fineliner pen. Now, it looks like the trunk is on top of the tree here, so I'm going to use the eraser brush to just cut it back so it looks like it's kind of disappearing underneath. And then to increase that effect, I want to add a shadow here as well. So again, I'll use the freehand selection tool. I'll just select the top part of the trunk and I'll darken it. And you can see it just gives it an effect that it's behind and under the tree. Now, everything so far has been done on 2 layers. So here's the trunk and the basket, and then here's the canopy of the tree. And just to keep this organized, I'll merge those together onto 1 layer. And now I can move on and do the background. So I'm going to make a blank layer for that, and I'm going to drag it so it's behind the tree. For the color, I'm going to use a kind of desaturated pink tone like that. And for the brush, I'll use the blotchy wash brush. And I'm just going to sketch out a rough oval behind the tree. Now this background looks pretty good, but I want to warp the bottom a little bit. So I'm just going to use the warp tool and make it a little bit broader here on the base. There we go. And if I zoom in here, you can see there isn't a lot of contrast between the bottom of the basket and the background. So I think an easy way to fix this is to lighten this a little bit more. So I'm going to open the layers panel and make sure our tree layer with the basket on it is selected. Then I'm going to use the selection tool, set to freehand, and once again, I'll try to select this portion. Then I'll go to my curves adjustment and make it even brighter so it stands more off the background. There we go. I think that's some pretty good contrast. And once the major elements of the scene have been roughed out like this, we can move on and add some details like ornaments and presents. And those are going to all be on their own layer. So I'll make a new blank layer that's above everything. And I'm just going to use the fineliner pen brush and a couple of Christmas colors to sketch out some ornaments first. And once the ornaments are all done, I'm going to add a couple of presents under the tree. And I'm using basically the same process. I'm just using the fineliner pen. I'll rough out a main color for the present. Then I'll use a contrasting color to add a pattern, and then another contrasting color to add the ribbons. And as a finishing touch, I'm going to use the same fineliner pen and pure white to add some Merry Christmas lettering around the top of the tree. And it took a few tries, but after a while it finally turned out okay. I just think the positioning is a little bit wrong. So I'm going to use the selection tool set to freehand, and I'm going to manually select each word here, and then I can warp it and bend it and move it so it fits a little bit better up here. And there we go. This illustration is all done, and here's what it looks like as a card. If you want to learn how to turn your Procreate artwork into a printed out 5x7 folding card at home, you should watch this video next.